Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I'm Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Jamiel Owens. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't you just start us off by just telling us a little bit about who you are?
So I have a extensive background. I want to probably cap it. Father, husband, serving to others, ex law enforcement, ex for first responder, um, autism father. I have two children right now. 18-year-old who's about to graduate high school. His name is Shane. He's the one that was diagnosed with autism. And then I have a little 4-year-old by the name of Alejandro. And as of right now, he is neurotypical. We don't have any concerns at this moment. But that's it. We could dive deeper into my background, but just
Yeah,
that's good for now.
sounds good. Appreciate it. Let's start off. What is your definition of inclusion?
When I hear that word, I think of education, right? The lack of is ignorance in uh any perspective that you see it. And inclusion is not only having actionable steps to make things physically inclusive, but it's actually changing the mentality behind it in order to embrace actions or perspectives that doesn't necessarily need anything tangible to be produced, if that makes sense. So inclusion means in my vision, education.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. You I know, let's say, you're a father, and I wanted you on to talk about that perspective. Have you for me, I have 2 children. My son, Aiden is, well, let's see, he's gonna be 25, I think, this year, actually. Yeah, he's gonna be 25, and then my daughter, Cecilia, is 15 months younger. So my son was, neurotypical, and then my daughter at 3 months, we found out she was having seizures, and then, diagnosed with cerebral palsy and epilepsy and that kinda things.
Hmm.
Didn't know anything about it, and as a father, I feel like, I don't know about you, but guys, we don't first time we see another guy, usually it's not like, "Hey, my daughter, has cerebral palsy." We don't lead with that usually. So, what was your experience for you? Like, you have a son that's been diagnosed with autism. Were you able to find other fathers? Were you feel kind of alone, or how was it for you?
No, it would definitely alone. So something I speak about on a regular basis is that just like all of us, we have a story. We have traumas in our life, right? Because that is promised to us. Um, I was a new father, never had children before, but was dealing with old traumatic wounds. So I basically took all of this traumatic um, uh, experiences and put it into my marriage. Therefore, brung it into my first experience with fatherhood, which was obviously terrible and detrimental to, my family structure at that time, my wife at that time. Um, this is something that plagues us as men. There's not one man on here that could say that they haven't had a traumatic experience, because when you think about traumatic experiences, you don't think of the worst, right? Breaking your leg, that's a traumatic experience. Getting an injury in sports, maybe being embarrassed at school, that's a traumatic experience. So everybody has had them. When I received the information about Shane's diagnosis, and I'm gonna be transparent, I was in a place with my ex-wife that I wanted to leave already. And the basis was on because I didn't circumvent or diminish those traumas, basically therapy and things like that. But the autism, because I knew there was something going on. My son, I didn't have experience as a father, but I knew something was going on, was sort of like the icing on a cake. Now, I want to be clear, because this is my son Shane wasn't the reason why I left my marriage. He wasn't. but everything else that I had in my life that I never unpacked and now just added on one more thing made the load too heavy for me, and I wanted out of my marriage. So literally on the ride over there, I was already contemplating my out. How would I get out of this marriage? And then when I received the diagnosis, and I'm be real with you, we got in the car. I dropped off my wife then and my son at home, and I went out drinking until the next day. That was my coping mechanism. I didn't have a support system. I didn't know any fathers who at that time looked like me other than older, and please, with no disrespect, but older Caucasian counterparts who had PhDs who talked about autism, and there was very few as a male, but couldn't tell me how to work through autism. Um, divorce, separation from my son for 4 years, um, until I was open, my heart was open. In the spiritual sense, I give it all to God. I'm a spiritual person. Um, he opened my eyes to see what the blessing that Shane was. And in that, he pushed me out of my comfort zone to become that person. So that poster child of a father, right? But my heart wasn't just to speak to fathers in the black and brown community. It was to speak to all fathers, regardless of who you were, what religion you were, who you voted for. I don't care about that. It was just about connecting with dads and being able to be a support system for when I didn't have that.
Yeah, thank you for your transparency and honesty. I appreciate that. So, yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, Mhm. There's some I mean, I grew up in the Baptist church, so there's a lot of stuff that I'm still like pops up once in a while actually. But for me, yeah, it was I ended up getting divorced from my ex-wife. I mean, but for me growing up, we never talked about anything. So like stuff was happening around us, people were getting divorced in the family and we just didn't talk about it. We knew it was we knew it was happening. I was old enough to recognize it, but we just never talked about it. So for me, definitely that was something that, you get married, start having kids. I don't know how to, work through my emotions, which I mean, I'm still working on some of that stuff. So yeah, we definitely, like you're right, there is stuff we carry that when it's not dealt with when you're young, it shows up when you're older in ways that aren't the best sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely. I tell a lot of because I'm able to speak now. I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I try to link with the audience that I speak to. Is that you have to remember nobody wakes up in the morning and say, "Hey, I want to kill all these people," right? Nobody wakes up in the morning and say, "Hey, I want to leave my family," or "I want to sexually abuse a child," right? These are extremes, but no one does that. There's always causation to the action. So, yes, we see the result first because we live in an era where everything is results driven, right? In order for news to be popular or to get views, they have to view the results first and then they report on the causation, right? So I try to make sure when we're when I'm talking to fathers or even mothers who are just trying to understand their partner, maybe trying to understand their husband, is to always understand that there's a causation that you may not know because we are not vocal either, right? We don't like to share or open up a lot, especially with our counterparts, our female counterparts. Look and possibly dig in deeper for the causation before only judging on the action. Because when you do that, you miss the opportunity to help and to be a part of the healing of that man who, in chance, could be the man that you know him to be, that you know he can be. But he has to go through that process. And that process is different, when it comes to men and women and how they process that.
Yeah, for sure. When you've been talking to lots of people, I mean, is there a difference between how fathers that are this is gonna sound I apologize if this sounds bad, are Caucasian versus black or brown? Do you notice any differences? Or are we kind of the same in how we process having a child with a
That's a
disability?
That's a good question, and I wouldn't reframe it any other
Okay.
way. That's a good question.
Okay.
I like people who are real. There is a difference, right? So there's a cultural difference, obviously, that we have to respect. But we're looking at the baseline. So we're looking at the foundation of why we are together, right? Yes, we have different skin color, we have different backgrounds, we're raised differently, right? But at the end of it, what we see is a common love for our children, but the fear of not knowing how to love them properly, how to support them. We know the love is there because they are ours, but we have that fear because we don't know what that process looks like. So obviously, anytime I'm together, I get men together, there is a awkwardness that's in the room. But what I make sure I do is I talk about my story. I'm very transparent about my story and my lived experience to kind of be the icebreaker when interacting with people. Because one thing I want to make sure, and I'm talking about the disability community as a whole, is that i- the world's problems are not welcome here, meaning that this is a community that thrives off of village mentality, off of connecting, off of sharing resources, off of just sitting in sorrow and grief with another family and just letting them know when I'm here, right? I've met plenty of fathers of different nationalities who we still talk today. We connect every time we see each other in public. We give handshakes. I'm always there. And it's never like, oh, well, you grew up in suburbia and you have, this perfect life. It's never about that. It's about, hey, I recognize that you have a child with special needs. I have a child with special needs. Let's build this community together, right? And and not to make this spiritual because I don't want to offend anybody's spiritual preferences, but I remember when the first time I started to get into the Bible and the Word, and I realized that Jesus never talked about skin color. It was always about where you're from and wanting to know, or, he's all knowing, but wanting to know more about your cultural beliefs or what you've experienced in your part of the world. So that's something I hold deeply into my heart. It's about learning from people. And that, once again, full circle goes back into inclusion. That's what inclusion is actually about.
Yeah, I love that how you try to break the ice. I've had some experiences where I just like meet somebody and like, hey, I have a daughter that uses a wheelchair, and all of a sudden, like, they're talking for 15 minutes about stuff in their life. I'm like, oh, hold on a second. You just like met me 30 seconds ago and you're telling me about some pretty deep secrets in your family. Have you ever had stuff like that? You share pieces of your story and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, okay, I guess we're sharing stuff.
Right. Right. But it's incredible to
Yeah.
see that because it's a wall broken down and it's it's like it's almost funny because you're like, see, like a minute ago, you wasn't going to talk to me because we just look different, but now we're like best friends. And it's just so funny that you have to laugh at human behavior because this is something that is exists in all of us, right? You go into a room, you don't know anybody, you see a lot of suits and ties, you're coming in there just regularly dressed, right? But then you start talking to one person and they're like, yo, your life sounds amazing. Let me introduce you to somebody else. And they're bringing somebody else and this bringing to somebody else. Now you're the most popular guy in the room. But just a moment ago, you're a little bit distant and a little bit negated to actually speak to someone. And that's how this community is. It's funny because you just study it, you see it all the time. And it's something that the rest of society can actually learn from. I'm not saying that we haven't done that, but I think particularly lately, we have really, really siloed ourselves away from each other because of everything that we're seeing going on in the world where we're supposed to be really attracting each other and really getting to know each other because the worst thing that we can do as a people, especially in the disability community, is figure that we are in this by ourselves and that no one is experiencing the ups and downs that we are in life. That's just naive of us. There are people that are experiencing more pain and hurt than you. There are people who could benefit in a positive way from connecting with you and hearing your story, like this podcast episode, right? We don't know who's going to hear this, who's going to reach, whose marriage is going to be saved, who's going to sit there and be like, you know what? I was hard on my husband. I was hard on my wife. Let me just apologize and ask them, tell me about your story. What don't I know about your past that is affecting you today? And that's really what I wanted to do with my life, is like save marriages, because I didn't save mine. And that's the worst thing that we can do for our children. They thrive on structure. They thrive on mom and dad consistently being there and hopefully together. And when you break that apart, that's a traumatic experience that I given to my older son that I'm never able to take back. So that's something that, if I can help my family not drown, not depart from each other, I can honestly say that I did something meaningful with my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's just, I mean, for me looking back, I mean, grew up Baptist, and you're like, once you're married, you're always married, and then like have kids right away, and you're like, you just get married, have kids, like, and nobody's telling you like how to do this like correctly, and you just thrown into it. And then we have a daughter with all those extra needs that you don't even think about. It just puts a lot of, I mean, like you're putting it into a pressure cooker, like all this just keeps warming up, and yeah, just yeah. So yeah, I completely understand that. And the silo piece, that is very true. Like we're so siloed. I mean, when my daughter was young, we did stuff with the Epilepsy Foundation in Minnesota, which for us was good because it's like, I mean, I'm old enough to remember Cheers. So you where Cheers, like they walk in and everybody knows your name and they're glad
Yeah,
you came. You don't
yeah.
have to tell your story at another time because we're all similar. So that was really good for us. But just looking around our community, there was a heavy push for, like, autism stuff, which is awesome. It's just my daughter doesn't have autism, so then it's like, where do we go? Because that's for
You
autism,
go.
so it's just, I mean, it's do you have any, I mean, have you seen any, like, thing like, you have do stuff for, it looks like you had the Autism Fathers Conference, which is great. I mean, how do you think we can maybe break down some silos and have some spaces where, like, fathers from no matter what their child has can be included, or
So it's funny that you asked that, because everything that you mentioned is true, right? So we don't mean, and I want to use this term very carefully, but it's a reality that we face, right? So once again, just natural human instinct. We segregate ourselves. So when we say, "Oh yeah, autism this," just like you say, you're a dad, and your daughter, your loved one, doesn't fit the autism space, right? So then you feel segregated from these group of dads that you are willing to connect with, but there's no bridge, right? So with the conference that I've developed 3 years in a row, yes, it is focused on autism, but I've had dads with children with exceptionalities, other exceptionalities, right? And they're like, is this a safe space for me to come to? And I'm like, yes. I was like, this is a safe space that you can make known to these autism fathers. Like, they might not even, and you'd be surprised, they might not even know about any other conditions out there, right? Because it doesn't affect them directly. But you being there, talking to other dads, letting them know, like, yeah, you know what, autism isn't here, but I'm just here for the mutual support, the community building, and you're able to educate. So I think moving forward, one of the goals is to align this conference. Obviously, 3 years in a row, we have started off strong with over 100 men attending this conference. It's men and non-male caregivers are welcome. So we've had 15 non-male caregivers this past conference this year. But we are looking to open it up to other conditions so that other men, other fathers feel supported, other mothers feel supported in this space. So yes, that is something that I'm looking forward to. Something that is definitely needed, because in my own ignorance, right, I kind of put autism on this pedestal as an idol, whereas though it's really not. Once again, it's about taking away that idol and looking at perspectives and different backgrounds of everybody. And I have to know and keep in mind that there's other conditions that are out there where support is actually needed. So yes, we're looking at that. Um, Probably maybe even this year, because every conference I like to do something different. We want to introduce a space, something aligned, or something cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, right? So fathers in that particular space could come out, hear, see, resources in that, but also get an understanding of autism too. It's about building and educating each other.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and I know yeah. It's just how yeah, it is it's interesting how we, like, we gravitated towards, like, the epilepsy foundation because my daughter had epilepsy and yeah, yours is autism, but then, part of me is like, I see your conference says autism, my brain can go a couple ways. One is, like, it's I see autism, I just don't even think about it. The other one is, like, why does it why does it hurt for me to, like, email Jamil and like, "Hey, Jamil, my daughter has cerebral palsy. She doesn't have autism. Would I be welcome there?" I mean, what's stopping me from doing that? So part of it, I feel like, is my own thing. Like, why don't I just if I don't see like a cerebral palsy, why don't I just email you? Because you have a conference, and I don't know of a lot of cerebral palsy conferences. So that's interesting.
And surprising enough, and I'm happy I just went to a symposium, right?
Yeah,
So they were talking on some of the connections between autism and epilepsy. So there is actually scientists that are looking at the relationships of both of these co-occurring conditions that have been found in other loved ones, other children across the world. So that is a link, right? But I have to be the one to open that door because quite honestly, fathers such as yourself, with no disrespect, you won't open that door because you already see it as, okay, this is cut and dry for autism. I'm here. You're already on a fence about contacting. But if I say, hey, there is a link, we have medical studies that talk about co-occurring conditions and how they work together with autism. Now that gets you open, like, I think this might be a space for me to go just because of this point, right? But it takes for a leader or organizer or a professional to open up that door to talk about it, to make people feel welcome. Like, I didn't think so, but now this is a space for me. So yes, one thing I pride myself with is, the ability to connect with people like you on your shows, do interviews like this, meet people out in the community. I'm always out in the community and I love it because that gives me advantage over a lot of people who are introverts who just don't like people, right? You what you deal with on a daily basis has to be left at the lease line. You have to be able to serve people with everything you got because you don't know the impact that you or that person is going to have on your life. And I hold that, like, once again, like we said before, we're gonna put this episode up. We don't know who's gonna hear our voices and turn around. They might be doing something in the house and turn around and be like, "What did they say?" Because that's how I've been feeling lately. We don't know the impact of what we do now because we figure it's minute in this world where everything can be instantaneously completed. You could get everything at the drop of a dime. But what you cannot do is you cannot get instant emotions from people. That's something that you takes time and it takes effort on both sides. And this is what things like this do. So once again, I'm very grateful and thank you for reaching out and even considering to have my voice on your platform.
yeah. I appreciate you being on. Yeah, I love having conversations like this. And as you were talking, few weeks ago on my Facebook memories, I had a post from about 15 years ago where I had a couple of people that week had thanked me for being the voice of the room, like bringing up like question or like asking a question that nobody had asked before. So it's even sometimes it's just simple things like that where you're in a setting, like, I think there were probably school meetings, and I asked a question that, the professionals that have been in the business for a long time had never heard before, and they thanked me for bringing it up. So, I mean, yeah, we never know, like, what just one simple question or one little story how it can impact people. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Let me flip it on you
Oh,
just a little
oh,
bit, right?
okay.
What's one thing as a person outside looking into epilepsy and the nuclear family structure that revolves around that. What is one thing that I and individuals like me should know about your daughter or about the condition or about the support that your family longs for? What are those things that we should know?
It's a great question. I mean, part of that is I'm kind of a person who just tries to do it all myself, so I'm trying to think of how other people I mean, my brain goes to like, if you see her having a seizure, this is what you should do. But it's more just, I mean, I'll just share a story. I mean, as a dad, so my daughter, she's had seizures since 3 months old, and I should knock on wood. She had when she was young, she has 90-minute grand malls, which is the ones where you're tonic clonic, you're shaking, airlifted multiple times. But it's been quite a while since she's had like some bad ones. So probably a month ago, she was over, started having a grand mal, and it was been a year since her last one. And I looked at her, and I was actually, I mean, she was breathing differently than normal. So I mean, in my brain, it flashed like this could be the one that she passes with. So I mean, it's just other people should know. I mean, ones like that for me. I mean, at least that flashed in my brain. So it just, I mean, just I don't know how you would support me in that. It's just it sometimes and can be life or death, and it is that real. Like that moment, my brain flashed. This could be the one that she doesn't live through. So it's just that that life or death, different things that my brain is comes across, I guess. Just I don't know how you would support, just be there and just listen to me probably would be that one. It's just and it at that moment then my brain's like, okay, well, my starts thinking about my life and like why am I doing this thing when, life could be over in a second. I mean, is this thing worth doing, or should I be just, enjoying life more, or, not working 60 hours a week? Because like, what's the point of that if I can't spend time with my kids and, they could pass? Kind of makes you rethink things, but yeah, it's just and I mean, I would hope that people would think it's not scary. I mean, it is scary if you see it, but for me, even I've seen a lot of seizures, and it still like gets me, or I hear like ambulances when I'm not with my daughter. If I'm in the same town and my brain for a second goes like, is she okay? Like I have like some PTSD with ambulances, because maybe they're going to see her or something. So yeah, I don't know. If that kind of answers your question.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. Thank you for transparency. Thank you for teaching me. Um, it makes me feel blessed without sounding harsh or compromising your struggle and your journey. But it makes me feel blessed to know that my journey is not as severe as yours, though I do have fears. But also too, my heart aches for you because um as a person, you're you you're struggling with just that balance of fatherhood, of being intentional, but also too of that fear factor in your brain. Um, so my heart aches because of that, because I'm like, I've been there before. I still have those thoughts, but to live in your shoes, I would probably crumble. So in the mix of that, I definitely want to applaud you and acknowledge you because your strength is untethered. Like, people we always look from the outside in and we judge people from what we see on the outside and we never know what people are going through. And that's something I got to remember every day, right? Somebody cut you off on the road, right? And you want to curse them out, right? And you're like, dude, why did they do that? But you don't know. They might be racing to get to a loved one that's about to pass away, or maybe they're trying to save their child from their abusive husband or their abusive wife. They're trying to get home quickly. Or maybe their loved one took a bunch of pills and they were on the phone with them and they're unresponsive. So I always think about those things. But to think about you and how your emotions kind of anchor your day every single day, just the fear of, right? I definitely, pray for you and your family, and I definitely, pray uh for God to take this burden off of your daughter and off of you. And I pray for your ability to just be intentional and to make the best effort possible because I know you're trying. we're all trying as men, right? We're trying to, work that 60 hours, 80 hours a week, be a provider, trying to take care of ourselves, right? Like take that time for ourselves, make time for our wives, and then make time for our children. And I'm struggling with that, brother, too. I'm struggling right now, just trying to figure out what that looks like. But the most effective thing that we can do is not give up. So I definitely want to applaud you for that. Even though this is your platform,
Yeah.
and then people are like, wait a second, he's asking questions like, what's going on here? But I think if I don't want to be another guest that just talks about my life. I want to be a guest to learn, and be able to, maybe even 5 years down the line, we see each other from some divine invention. We see each other. You're like, hey, Jamil, remember me, Aaron? And I'm like, yeah, I remember you. And we kick off where we left off. Obviously, we want to stay in touch during this process. But I want to be able to think back and be like, wow, that was an impactful podcast for my life too, because I learned something about another man I never met before in my life. And he taught me something about vulnerability, and endurance. And this is what you just literally gave to me. So I appreciate that. Because now I feel like, hey, I need to raise the bar on myself and I need to push on every single day, just like Aaron does.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Thank you. That wasn't as scary as I thought it was gonna be. You're like, "Can I ask a question?" I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be."
I try not to make it scary. I try not to make it like too scary. Trust me, I've been in that situation. It's like, oh, wait a second. How do I answer that? So no, I try to make it easy as possible.
For sure. What is one tip you can share to help listeners be more inclusive today? So just something anybody can start doing today to be more inclusive.
When it's hard, love on people that much more. Um, it's easy for us to write people off, family members, parents, coworkers, bosses. Um, I think when we kind of put our egos and our pride down, obviously, if it's warranted, because some situations where you just can't love a person, but if you have the ability to love on somebody that much more, even though they might be a jerk to you, um, it gives you less stress. It gives you you take the accountability off of you for that person and you give that back to them. Hey, I'm going to love you regardless. But what you have going on, you gotta kind of gotta process that. And then when you come back to me, just know that my arms is open. And I just want everybody to realize that we have that, whether you realize it or not. So I'm talking in between the lines. So if you figure that out, then you'll understand where I'm going. Just love people that much more because we're all imperfect. And that is inclusion. That's education. That's learning about people. So that will be my tidbit.
Thank you. If there's one thing you hope listeners take away from your story, what would it be?
That I am a man that has failed myself, failed my son, failed my family. I am a man that has circumvented life in this society and has taken the life raft out of systematic thought process that most men fall into. Meaning, um, I know that in most cases where I was born, I shouldn't be talking to you, if that makes sense, right? I immediately assume that you're more privileged than me, that you have more than me. And let's be real, because there are certain situations today in society where there's unbalances between races and different things, right? But what I see is I'm robbing myself of true wealth and wisdom by not opening my heart to you. And I want to encourage people to start doing that. Yes, we have to acknowledge the pain, but we also have to acknowledge that you are a new person. And with you being a new person and what your ancestors did many years ago, if anything, was on them. But we hold you responsible for today for just being that good enough person. where we can come together, we can build, we can grow, we can say, that's my friend, that's my guy right there, and learn from each other. So I know I'm speaking maybe fantasy to some people, but I wholeheartedly believe that it can be done. It has been done before. And I'm willing to do that with anybody. And I hope that message resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Where's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to connect?
I'm on social media right now. I've been, and it's funny, I've been kind of tethering about letting go of social media, but right now my pages are up. The Awesome Show on Instagram, TheAusomeshow. Also too, I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Jamiel Owens. You can always find me on there as well. And on Facebook as The Awesome Show, same spelling. So, explore my content, find yourself in my content, r you know, comment about it, whatever the case may be. I make, content that just explores my life and my perspective as a father, but you could see a lot of your journey in it. I guarantee it because I'm so transparent about the struggles that I've been through. But yeah, find me there. Reach out to me. Let's talk, especially for the men. Before you walk out of your kingdom, I want you to reach out to me so we can talk and keep you in that house. Believe me, there's a couch, there's somewhere else that you can sleep. But when you walk out that door, you allow the enemy to come in and wreak havoc on your marriage and your household. And I don't want that for you.
And thank you. Ready for the last question?
Ready?
Do you like spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
Yes.
That was quick. So yeah, I live near Austin, Minnesota, where they make spam and where the spam museum's located. So I've been asking everybody like that just to see what the reaction is.
Listen, who doesn't like spam? Come on, man. You gotta see. See, that's what I'm talking about. We're friends. We're friends now. Like we both like spam. So listen, I'm good with it.
There you go. So yeah, it's fun just to see what the reactions because usually it's fast, yes or no. There's usually not thinking much about it. It's usually quick.
Yeah, I like that. Keep that going.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Love everybody. Love you guys and stay in the fight. Stay intentional and stay motivated. This is your journey. Live it. You're built for this.
To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.